Hello and welcome to this live stream talking all about TEFL certificates, TEFL, TESOL, CELTA, all of that. I'm Jamie from ESL Teacher 365, and I would love to hear where you are watching from. Just leave me a comment, and if you're catching up on the replay, you can also leave a comment. As we go through all the questions, if you have other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will try and answer as many as I can. I guess a little bit about me first before we get into the questions. I've been teaching English abroad and online technically since 2007, but then I went back to school to finish my degree and everything, but for a very long time. And I've taught in many different places, both English and dance. All right. Let's begin with our first question. So, what is a TEFL or TESOL or CELTA certificate? This is a course that you take, and at the end, you get a certificate, and it's used for teaching English abroad and online. It really depends where you're teaching, what kind of certificate that they're looking for, but the basic one is usually 120 hours as a minimum. And I will go over all the differences between these different certificates. Let's begin with TEFL versus TESOL. There's a lot of confusion around this, and do I need both certificates? What is the difference? So TEFL is for teaching English as a foreign language, and TESOL or TESOL, it's pronounced different ways, is teaching English to speakers of other languages. Usually TEFL refers to when you're teaching English in a country that's not an English-speaking country. When you're teaching TESOL, you are in an English-speaking country. For example, right now I'm in Australia, but if I'm teaching English to speakers of other languages, that's kind of what that refers to. But you don't need both certificates. You only need a TEFL certificate or a TESOL certificate. So don't worry about getting both. It's more or less going to be the same information. Now, those compared to something like CELTA. CELTA is the Cambridge English brand of TEFL or TESOL certificate. So you do have so many different brands and kinds of TEFL certificates out there, but CELTA is probably the most well-known. It's also one of the most expensive. I have taken a CELTA course, and I've taken a few different TEFL and TESOL courses to test out for my channel. So I like to be able to compare them for you. So we'll get a little bit more into CELTA later on, but that's kind of the basics. So why should you get a TEFL certificate? This is something that a lot of jobs are going to either require or prefer when they're trying to hire you as a teacher. For online teaching, I would say that most companies these days want just as long as you have a basic 120-hour TEFL certificate or TESOL certificate. But if you're teaching abroad, that's when it can get a little bit, the requirements are a little bit higher. So if you're teaching in certain regions or certain countries or certain positions, they may be looking for a better or a kind of certificate where you had teaching practice. We usually talk about level 3 TEFL certificates and level 5 TEFL certificates. There's also some other levels as well, but those are the two main ones. So you can think of the 120-hour TEFL certificate as the level 3, and then the level 5 is usually something like CELTA or a CELTA equivalent. You are going to get your TEFL certificate, and a lot of times you actually need to get it certified to teach in certain countries, and this is for the visa. So if you do your course, sometimes they will give you a digital certificate, and sometimes they will make you pay to get the actual physical certificate. It really depends on where you're teaching, which one that you can use. But I always recommend getting that physical copy because you don't know where you're going to be in the future, where you're going to want to teach. It is worth it to get that one. Does a TEFL certificate expire? No, TEFL certificates don't expire. That's good news. You can do your TEFL certificate once and then you are good to go. However, I do have people who contact me who say, I did my TEFL certificate, 10 years ago. Is it still valid? Is it still good? TEFL certificates are updated, and these days, with all of the advancements in technology, especially technology in the classroom, more TEFL courses are including information about how to use technology in the classroom that maybe they didn't have 10 years ago. It is worth upgrading your TEFL certificate if you did a basic one and maybe you want one with teaching practice or a level 5 one. I would say it is worth looking into getting a better one, but they don't expire. Again, it is really based on how and where you want to teach. If you just want to teach online, you can kind of use a basic one. But if you're looking to teach in places like Europe or the Middle East, where it's a bit more competitive, then you'll want a level 5 CELTA equivalent style TEFL certificate. Are all TEFL certificates accredited? This is a huge question and a huge problem. I would say for this one, you need to do your research. Each TEFL certificate is going to have a website. So, all these different companies are offering TEFL certificates. They're going to have a website, and some of the quality ones will have a section there on their accreditation. So, who is it that is doing all of this and which body is it? There's no such thing as a globally accredited TEFL certificate. It's usually by, there's different groups in, for example, the UK or in the US, but you need to do your research. So go to that section of the website, see if there's any information about the accreditor, and then look that up because some of them are basically these organizations where the company just pays a fee and then that says that it's accredited. You do need to be careful, especially if you want to teach in more competitive countries, because you may get there, get that job offer, and then you find out that, oops, your TEFL certificate isn't actually legit, wasn't accredited. Be very careful with that. So I would say all of them say that they are accredited, but yes, just be very careful. I'd say OffQual is a very good accreditor. So if you have something that is accredited by OffQual, that is a good one. Kind of going along with that, can I get a free TEFL certificate? Yes, you can, but do you want to? When I recommend free TEFL certificates is if you're brand new to teaching English as a second language or as a foreign language, maybe you're not sure if this is something that you want to go into, then of course, get a free TEFL certificate, check it out, see what it's like, see if you enjoy it. But don't expect to be able to use a free TEFL certificate to teach abroad. To teach online, some companies are going to accept this, but to teach abroad, a lot of these aren't accredited, they aren't regulated. And again, you'll go abroad and then you'll have a problem with that. Don't get a free TEFL certificate if you are planning on teaching abroad. It's just not worth it. Good for checking out everything, not great for actually using it. Also, can I use a cheap TEFL certificate to teach abroad? There are a lot of different prices for these courses. Some of them are as cheap as $19, $20, $35. These courses are okay for online teaching. Companies will accept these and you'll be able to teach with these. But Don't rely on these to teach abroad. Again, it comes down to the accreditor. Are these actually accredited or not? Usually, these cheap ones aren't. If you're looking to teach in more competitive countries or countries where you need a certified copy for your visa, they're not going to accept these. I really don't think that cheap TEFL certificates are worth it. It's kind of just a waste of time and money. If you're really serious about teaching abroad, invest in a good course. Okay. Can I get a TEFL certificate without a degree? Yes, you don't have to have a degree to get a TEFL certificate. There's no prerequisite for that, but you are going to be more limited in where you can teach if you don't have a degree. If you don't have a degree, some online companies won't hire you. And for teaching abroad, you'll be a lot more limited in where you can go. Some places that are better for teaching abroad without a degree are Cambodia. Most of the other Asian countries are going to require a degree for the visa. And some Latin American countries also don't require a bachelor's degree, but they do require the TEFL certificate. If you do have a degree, then to teach abroad, typically it doesn't need to be a degree in English or education. It can be a degree in anything. But if you're a non native speaker, sometimes there are extra requirements. So you might need to have your degree be in English, linguistics, education, something like that. But to do a TEFL course, pretty much anyone can do the TEFL course. But the problem comes with getting a visa when you're trying to get your job abroad. Are TEFL courses hard? This is going to depend on which course you take. I'll give you some examples of the courses that I've done. I did my CELTA course here in Brisbane, Australia, and I did the part time 11-week CELTA course. And it was very challenging. At this point, I had already been teaching abroad for about 7 years, but I had been teaching kids. And the CELTA is more focused on teaching adults. In that way, I did struggle a bit with the lesson planning just because I was more used to teaching kids. But we had assignments, we had classes on the weekends and the evenings. So I was working in a school during the day, but then taking the course part time at night and over the weekend. We had to teach classes, we had to prepare lessons, we had to give feedback. It was a lot of work. It was hard. It was challenging. And not everyone finished the course. And I think that's pretty normal with CELTA. Now, in comparison, I took the Premier TEFL 120-hour course. I do have a review on my channel about that. This course I finished in, I think, 2 weeks, just a few hours here and there. For this one, it was kind of just a document that you would read through. There were a few videos, there were some quizzes, but I wasn't having to do assignments. I wasn't having to do teaching practice, anything like that. So, a course like that, one of those more basic ones, that's going to be good for online teaching, or if you have teaching experience, maybe you are a certified teacher, but you just need your TEFL certificate on top of that, then that could be a good choice. But if you're brand new to teaching, I don't recommend one of those easier basic TEFL courses. It's just not going to be enough. To give you another example of maybe you're not ready for the CELTA, but you would like something similar and not so focused on adults, but that's good for teaching both kids and adults. I also took the International TEFL Academy course. You can also find that review on my channel. That one was interesting. It's online, but it's part-time, 11 a week, so very similar to CELTA, but you have very strict deadlines. You have a weekly reading, a weekly assignment, a weekly quiz, and then you have these peer-to-peer forums where you need to read through other people's responses and reply thoughtfully on different questions or scenarios. And it was a lot of work. It was pretty hard. The lesson planning was not easy. It even challenged me, and I've been doing this for years and years. Um, so again, if you're going for a quality level 5 course, similar to a CELTA, those courses are challenging. They are hard. They will challenge you, even if you have teaching experience. If you're doing a basic 120-hour course, it's as easy as kind of just reading through material and then taking a quiz. It's not very challenging. Okay, next question. Which TEFL courses do you recommend? I only like to recommend courses that I have personally taken or I have spoken with the company. I get questions all the time. People send me, is this course good? Is this course good? I can look at the website and tell you in about 5 seconds if it's legit or not, but I only like to recommend courses that I've taken and I know are going to be helpful for you. If you don't have a TEFL course yet, there will be some courses that I do recommend linked down in the description. But just to give you kind of the basic breakdown, if you're a native speaker, you have a degree, and you have some teaching experience, then you can take one of those basic 120-hour courses. You probably are just kind of topping up your qualifications you already have with your TEFL. That's fine. If you are a native speaker, you have a degree, but you don't have teaching experience, then I would go to a level 5 course already. I think it's worth it to do a course that has some teaching practice involved to get that experience in the classroom to give you more confidence. If you are a teacher without a degree, I would go straight to the level 5 courses. So something like CELTA or International TEFL Academy, because those courses are more challenging. They are more well known. And so employers are going to look at those better, especially when you don't have a degree. For non-native speakers, same thing. I recommend level 5 courses. It is more challenging to get hired as a non-native speaker. It's not impossible, but you want to have the best qualifications that you can. And I'll share some more tips for that a little bit later on for non-native speakers. And just to give you some hope, in Australia, where I worked at a school for 3 years and then another school for 6 months, I would say about half of my coworkers were non-native speakers, and this is a native speaking country. So I find that to be very inspiring for non-native speakers. There were a lot of amazing teachers there that weren't necessarily native speakers. So definitely don't forget about Australia. In person versus online TEFL courses. What do you think? Should I get an in person course? Should I do an online one? I think that this comes down to your learning style. I have done both. I did my CELTA in person and I've done a bunch of online courses, and the experience is very, very different. There's nothing like struggling through a CELTA with other people. You're all going through the same thing and you're working together, you're learning from each other. You can ask questions. You have your tutors there. I would say, yeah, if you haven't taught before, try and find a course near you that's offered in person. This could be CELTA, this could be Cert TESOL, this could be a TEFL course offered at a university near you. I would recommend doing in person. If you have a crazy busy schedule or you travel a lot and it's just hard to commit to those in-person courses, maybe they're not near you, then online courses can be a better option. Some of them will give you, for example, 6 months to complete the work, unless you do something like International TEFL Academy that has those strict deadlines. But you want to consider your responsibilities. Are you working? Are you taking care of people at home? How much time do you have for this course? But yeah, I'd say the experience is quite different. The online courses can be a bit isolating. You're kind of going through everything by yourself, but some of the courses do have opportunities to talk to other people or collaborate with other teachers. All right, take a little pause before we get into our next one. All right, we've got a lot of people here from different places today: Georgia, Mexico, Malaysia, South Africa, India. Excellent. I'll get to the questions that you're leaving, and I'll leave those for the end. And if you're catching this, the replay, feel free to leave a comment and I will come in and answer those too. Okay, we got some more questions. Can I do a TEFL course abroad? Yes, you can. There are different companies that offer this, and your experience is going to be a bit different. I technically did my CELTA course abroad. I came to Australia on a work holiday visa. I wasn't really planning on even teaching here. I had been teaching in Spain and was completely burnt out, but it kind of, the puzzle pieces all fell together. I don't know. Something happened and I did my course here. But some companies do have where you would get your TEFL abroad, and it's a good experience because you can network with people there. You're going through the course with people with people in person, and yeah, it's just a different kind of experience. I would say, let's see, there's courses offered in Spain, Costa Rica, Thailand, Vietnam. It kind of depends on the company, but International TEFL Academy, Premier TEFL, they offer that option. And then the TEFL Academy is interesting. They have a hybrid option where you do a lot of your course online, and then in person, you do your teaching practice. So that's an interesting option as well. These are going to be more expensive. You're doing your course abroad. Some of these you will have the option to do a homestay. So do consider the price and kind of factor that in, but it is an option. Okay, money question. How much do TEFL courses cost? Like I mentioned before, you can get a TEFL course for free or CELTA. It will depend on where you're taking it, but it can be up to like $2,000 or more. That's a huge range. And I would say that the kind of quality TEFL courses are usually between maybe $300 and $1,000 or $1,500, kind of in that range. Again, it depends on, do you need the basic TEFL course? Do you need the level 5 one? But you do have many different prices. If you're teaching online, you don't need to invest in one of those super expensive courses. You can rely on those basic ones for teaching online. But if you're teaching abroad, it is worth investing in a quality TEFL course, and that can be quite expensive. Some of the companies will have options to do split payments. It really just depends on the provider. CELTA, I don't know if they do that. I think you usually kind of just have to pay in full, but it probably depends on where you take it. Is TOEFL the same as TEFL? This is really confusing too, but TOEFL is an English exam. If you are a non-native speaker, along with a TEFL, you'll also want to get an English level certificate. TEFL or TESOL is going to show that you know how to teach English, but something like TOEFL, IELTS, Cambridge, those are going to show that you know how to speak and communicate and write and read in English. That's going to show your level. Some countries are going to have minimum English level requirements. Could be something like a C1 advanced level, C2 proficiency level. It just depends on the visa, on the job, on the country. But if you're a non-native speaker, definitely look into those English language exams because you need that in addition to your TEFL certificate. Do I need a TEFL certificate if I have a bachelor's of education or a master's of education? This depends on where you are teaching. Here in Australia, I arrived with my years of experience teaching, my master's in education, my US teaching certificate, and they still said, nope, you need a TEFL certificate. It really just depends. Other places, you don't need a TEFL certificate if you have a bachelor's of education, if you have a master's of education. Do your research on the countries where you would like to teach and see if it's required or not. For online teaching, I have seen many times where if you have a degree in education, you don't need to do the TEFL certificate. But it can still be helpful if you're certified to teach math or science. You don't really know the methods to use to teach English as a second language or as a foreign language. So, in that case, it is worth getting a TEFL certificate in addition to your other qualifications. Which TEFL courses are best for non-native speakers? For non-native speakers, I do recommend CELTA, which is the Cambridge brand TEFL, Cert TESOL, which is the Trinity brand, and I would say International TEFL Academy is another good option for non-native speakers. But just because you get this TEFL certificate does not guarantee that you can get a job anywhere. Unfortunately, there are some countries that have restrictions based on your passport. China, for example, South Korea, for example, they are looking for specific passports because that is a visa requirement. There are definitely countries that are more open to hiring non native speakers, like Mexico or Thailand, but you need to do your research. So just because you have that CELTA, unfortunately for non-native speakers, doesn't necessarily mean that you can access everything. Are TEFL courses with job placements or job guarantees legit? This is an interesting one. You may have seen TEFL courses that say guaranteed job placement or, teach in Thailand, do our course, and then we'll help you find a job. Be a bit careful with these because some of these, yes, there's a guaranteed job, but the quality of the course isn't that great. If you are interested in a TEFL course with a job placement or a job guarantee, then I would recommend going with a quality TEFL provider first because you know that you'll have that certificate and that certificate's good for life. You can always use that certificate in other places. But if you go with somewhere where they don't tell you exactly which certificate that you get, you don't know if you can then use that same TEFL certificate in another country or if it's not going to be recognized. Be a bit careful. These are also quite expensive. Do your research, see if the fees are worth it. Look at a few different providers. And some people say, well, why would I pay for a TEFL certificate, pay this much, and then get a job placement? It's more for your comfort. If you're planning on teaching abroad just 1 year, maybe it's worth it. Then you don't really have to go through, the stress of finding the job yourself and getting the visa and all of that stuff. You get some support. But at the same time, the jobs that you get, it might not be a great fit either. The schools that they work with, maybe they aren't able to place you very well. So do go through the reviews and see what people are saying. But my recommendation is if you are interested in this, go through a quality TEFL provider. For example, International TEFL Academy or Premier TEFL, they do have some job placement programs. Okay, how can I choose the best course for me? I think I touched upon this a little bit already, but it really depends on if you're a native speaker or a non native speaker, if you have a degree or not, and if you have teaching experience yet or not. If you are very confident in the classroom, you are qualified, that's when you can go for those basic 120-hour level 3 courses. Or if you just want to teach online, you can get a more basic course. But for pretty much every other situation, I would recommend a level 5 course. And also just talk to people that have taken courses. There's a lot of different reviews that you can look at, and there's different websites where they kind of go through all the different courses and compare them. So do your research and see which one would be a good fit. If you would like a recommendation, you can always send me an email as well, and I'm happy to help you find a course. Okay, where can I find more information about TEFL courses? You can go to, I would say just do a basic search of TEFL courses. You'll probably get a whole big list of them and then go through the different companies. There's also like Go Abroad and Go Overseas. Those are websites that have a lot of different programs and TEFL courses. I do also have the ones that I recommend down below in the description. And you can also go through some of the ones that I've mentioned today. So go to the Cambridge website to check out CELTA. You can also look up Cert TESOL, and those are good places to start. Okay, let's look through the comments and see what kind of questions we have. All right, to clarify, TEFL and TESOL are without an actual practicum, while CELTA is with a practicum. Not necessarily. CELTA is always going to have a practicum involved. That is part of it. It's highly regulated, and that's always going to be part of it. But some TESOL or TEFL courses will also have a practicum. The International TEFL Academy one that I did have a practicum, but it's a bit interesting. For CELTA, for the teaching practicum, we had students that would come and the course kind of set everything up and we would teach them. I believe they were given the courses for free. After that, to get more people, they did kind of like a deposit system. But for International TEFL Academy, which was the one I did online, I had to set everything up. You could either do your practicum in person or you could do it online, but you were in charge of setting everything up. They do give you a lot of resources, but if you're abroad, it's a little bit tricky. I would say more of the resources are if you're based in the US. So if you're in the US, it's a lot easier. But being in Australia, I ended up just doing my practicum with my online teaching hours because I'm kind of in a smaller town here. But that's a good question. Okay, can I teach in Europe with my TEFL or TESOL certificate is another question. In Europe, it depends on the country. A lot of countries in Western Europe do prefer CELTA and Cert TESOL. I have a friend in Italy who's looking to teach there, and she said pretty much every school in bigger cities are asking for CELTA, and if you're a non-native speaker, you need to have a C2 proficient level of English. Smaller towns might not be as demanding, but yeah, I would say Western Europe definitely prefers CELTA, as does parts of the Middle East too. But it just depends. Okay, some more questions. Can you please talk more about non-native speakers? Are they welcome to teach online, especially in Europe? Is it really challenging to get an online job for non-native speakers? Good question. All right. For online teaching for non-native speakers, it's a bit tricky. A lot of these online ESL companies and even online teaching marketplaces are going to have passport requirements or residency requirements. For example, I work for OutSchool, and you can be a non-native speaker, that's not a problem, but you need to be a permanent resident at least 6 months out of the year in certain countries, and those countries happen to be native English speaking countries. So that leaves out a lot of non-native speakers. Other companies are going to say, we only want teachers from the UK, from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the US, Ireland, the UK. Unfortunately, for non-native speakers, I recommend freelance teaching because some of the companies that do accept non-native speakers are going to pay you a lot less, which is crazy because you're doing the exact same job, but it's really unfair. So I recommend starting your own freelance teaching business, teaching your own students. If you want to get a better currency, target students in a different country. But for non-native speakers, yes, unfortunately, freelancing is kind of the way to go. Okay, another question. What does it mean level 5? Okay, level 5, there's different levels of TEFL certificates. Level 3 is kind of that basic 120-hour TEFL certificate. Level 5 is going to be usually the CELTA or CELTA equivalent. These ones are usually have a teaching practicum with them, and I believe the CELTA is technically 170 hours. Some of these, I don't know where they get these hours from because some of them take less time, some of them seem to take more time, but that's kind of the main difference is the hours. But you will see some companies offer like 300-hour TEFL and 340 hours, like really random things. But the important thing is to look to see if it is a CELTA equivalent. If it's truly an off-qual regulated CELTA equivalent. Because some of these courses, they say they're equivalent to CELTA, but they aren't. They're just kind of a collection of random courses. So be careful with that. And are English language exams compulsory or only TEFL ones compulsory? If you are a non-native speaker, I highly, highly recommend getting your English level certified and your TEFL certificate. Some countries are going to require this, and even if they don't require it, it's just good to prove that that's your level so that they know where you're starting with. So I recommend having both. Okay. We have another question. Greetings from the USA. I'm TEFL certified and have been teaching online for several years. I'm starting to research teach abroad programs. Do you do a weekly live covering various topics? Excellent question. Teach abroad programs. There are several different teach abroad programs in different countries. Typically, they are connected to the government. So the government kind of brings in native speakers or fluent English speakers to work in, I would say, usually public schools, but there are some teach abroad programs in private schools and charter schools as well. Some of the most popular ones are EPIC in South Korea, JET in Japan. The one in Spain is called Auxiliares de Conversación. Unless you're from Canada or the US, they also call it NALCAP. France has TAPIF. There is one in Hungary, CETP. Those are kind of the big ones. There's also one in Taiwan. Yeah, they're definitely getting more and more popular. Spain also has a lot of teach abroad programs in charter schools and public schools. There's Beta, USETAM, Conversa Spain. If you're interested in Spain, I have like a whole Teach in Spain playlist, so definitely check that out. I did 2 different programs in Spain. But yeah, if you're researching teach abroad programs, do be aware that a lot of these are language assistant programs. So that means that you're working with a local teacher in the classroom and you might not really be in charge. You could be pulling out groups of students to work one-on-one or in small groups. You could be doing everything. They might say you're an assistant, but you're kind of running the show. It can be a very different experience depending on the program, depending on your co-teachers. So if you do have a lot of teaching experience, I would say maybe don't go for the teach abroad program. Try to find an actual teaching position, but it's kind of up to you. But there are definitely lots of different teach abroad programs. And to answer your question about a weekly live, this is actually probably my first one. I did one other live, I think, a master class, but yeah, I thought I would try it out and see if it was helpful. So I may be doing this weekly in the future. Okay, good question. We have another question here. All right. Is there an age limit to teach? Good question. I get this one a lot too. Age limits to teach will depend on the country and depend on the visa. For the visa, for example, sometimes you get access to the healthcare system and they don't want to offer this to people above retirement age. usually for the healthcare system reasons and also because it's their official retirement age. That being said, some countries don't really enforce their retirement age, and some do. Are going to enforce it for the local teachers, but not expat teachers. It really depends. Um, there are some countries that are better for older teachers, and some teachers that are older are preferred in certain countries because of their, have more experience, whereas other countries do tend to hire younger teachers. I recommend doing some research. There's some good articles out there. I think there's one from International TEFL Academy on different countries where you can teach abroad if you're over 50, over 55, over 60, and also Reddit forums. There's a lot of forums for teaching abroad in different countries. Actual people are commenting, okay, the official retirement age is this, but I'm 75 and I'm still teaching here. This is my experience. So, yeah, just takes a little bit of research. Okay, some more questions. All right. Okay, do you need a teaching degree? Teaching degrees are very helpful if you want to teach abroad or online, because this is going to, for teaching abroad, is going to open up the world of international schools. International schools are basically schools for expat kids. Nowadays, it's kind of a mix of local kids and expat kids. These are usually K-12 schools and usually private. If you're a certified teacher, then you can qualify to teach in these schools. You'll go through an agency like Search Associates, International School Services, Teacher Horizon, Teach Away, and they have kind of placement agencies that help match certified teachers with positions abroad. So this is going to be typically 2-year contracts. And it's a really great opportunity if you do have a teaching license or a teaching certification. So this would be different from TEFL, TESOL. That is for teaching English as a second language. For international schools, typically you're going to be teaching the subject that you're certified in. So I'm certified to teach Spanish, but I actually ended up teaching kindergarten, which was technically preschool, and first grade in Spain at an American school. So I have a US teaching license, so I could qualify for the work visa to do this. It can be more challenging to teach in more competitive countries with just a TEFL certificate. So if you're really serious and passionate about teaching abroad, traveling, I recommend getting a teaching certificate because that will open up a lot of doors. Okay. All right, let's see some more questions. Argentina, what do they require and do they need a teaching degree? For Argentina, it's going to depend on where you're teaching. Some are going to require a degree, some are not, but I wouldn't say that they're looking for teaching certificates if you're planning on teaching ESL. You're good to go with a TEFL certificate there, but there's going to be a lot of different ways to teach abroad. So in general, there are a lot of different kinds of schools and even ways to teach abroad. So you can teach in those international schools. You can teach in language schools. That would be more ESL jobs. There's in-company business classes where you can teach business lessons. Maybe you're traveling from business to business. There's private tutoring. There's freelancing in some cases. It really depends on the country and what visas are available to you, what options are available. In some countries, it's going to be more popular to only teach kids. Some countries are going to have the option to teach both kids and adults. So I always recommend thinking of your top 5 to 8 countries, really narrowing down based on, you're interested in the culture and the language and the climate is good for you and all of that. And then doing your research to see what ways you can teach there and also what options are available for the visas. So if you need help with this, I do have an online course that goes through all of this information. I also have a monthly membership. I will put those links down in the description. I don't remember if they're there, they might be, but I will put those down in there. So if that's your situation, you need help deciding all of these questions and kind of the logistics of moving abroad, then I recommend checking those out. Okay. Would you recommend I-to-I level 5 for a non-native speaker who wants to teach abroad? I haven't personally taken I-to-I TEFL course yet. I am planning on testing out kind of all the most popular ones and putting reviews on my channel. So I would say look out for that in the future. But as of now, I don't want to recommend it because I haven't looked at it. I haven't seen it yet. Okay, let's see. Mm-mm-mm. Are non-native English speaking teachers with a level 5 TEFL welcome in teaching abroad opportunities? It depends. If you want to teach in China, for example, as a non-native speaker, you can't teach English there. You can teach other subjects like math or science, but for English teachers to qualify for the visa, they're a lot more strict now and it's just not possible. So just because you have a level 5 TEFL certificate as a non-native speaker, unfortunately, you can't teach anywhere. You are going to be a bit more limited, not super limited, but there are going to be some restrictions. Okay, let's see what else. What is a teaching certificate? Good question. A teaching certificate is different from a TEFL, CELTA, TESOL certificate. This is going to qualify you to work in typically public schools, so K through 12 schools. And for example, in the US, you will do uh, you'll have to take an exam. Our exam is called Praxis, so in your subject area. And then you also have to do student teaching. So I did a semester of student teaching, and then I majored in Spanish, but then I also got like an education degree on top of that. In the UK, there's the QTS, Qualified Teacher Status, or the PGCE as well. It really just depends on your country, kind of what the process is to be a teacher. So if you're not sure how to get a teaching certificate, the best advice I can give you is go to your local university and ask about what the process is to be certified to teach in public schools. This might look like a Bachelor of Education. You might have to get a Master's of Education. It just depends on your country. It's kind of different in each place. Okay, another question. I have completed Trinity Cert TESOL. Can I teach abroad? I'm from India. So yeah, Cert TESOL is similar to CELTA. That's a great qualification. And Indian teachers, uh, you're a little bit lucky. You're kind of considered to be near native speakers by some countries. So for example, for South Korea, they're very strict on passport requirements, but they do have a program there called EPIC. And if you are an Indian teacher, you can qualify to teach there. But I do believe you have to have an extra qualification like a teaching certificate in English. So yes, Indians with Cert TESOL or with CELTA, you can teach abroad. That is a great qualification to have, but you may be a bit more limited, and some countries may ask for a degree in English or a teaching certificate on top of that. So just kind of be aware of that. Okay, so I think we've gone through all of our questions, but if you are catching the replay, you can always write a comment and I will try and answer all of your questions. Okay. And I just want to let you know that if you are interested in teaching online, I'm hosting an online teaching workshop on October 3rd. This is more for new teachers. You're brand new to teaching online. You've been thinking about it. You're a bit curious. What are the steps? How do you get started? This is going to be a 2-hour workshop and it will be live with me on Zoom. And I would love to see you there if you're interested in teaching online. We'll go over the different ways to teach online, how to make a demo and intro video. I know that can be a little bit strange if you've never had to do that before. We'll talk about where to look for online teaching positions, everything related to online teaching. So if you would like to join that, you can go to courses.eslteacher365.com/online teaching workshop. I also have it linked down below, and I offer different workshops about once a month or every other month. So I've also offered a freelance online teaching workshop, a Teach Abroad boot camp. So if you are new and you're interested in teaching abroad, then or online, I do have a lot of resources for you. All right, I see another question. Let's see. Okay. So asking for where non-native speakers can apply along with a TEFL or a TESOL. This is going to depend on the countries that you're interested in. For teaching abroad, sometimes it's better to apply in person, and sometimes it's better to apply from abroad. And this depends on how the visas work. So, for example, for Vietnam, you can show up in Vietnam on a tourist visa, interview in person, and then once you have a signed contract, you can convert to a work permit. You can also look for jobs from abroad. So you're in your country and you can try and get a job that way. But it depends on the country. Some countries you can't apply in person, some you can. So I recommend choosing which countries you're interested in and then doing your research to see what the path to the visas is and what is the most typical. Okay. Can you do a TEFL directly in Spain and go straight to a job? There are some TEFL courses in Spain that you can do. I know someone who did TT Madrid. International TEFL Academy also has them there. And it is possible to convert your visa once you're in Spain. It takes a really long time. And I don't think you can leave the country while you're waiting for your visa. So it can be a little bit tricky, but it is possible. With a lot of the language assistant programs, you're not actually given a work visa, you're given a student visa because it is a grant and or a stipend. So it's a little bit different. Work visas in Spain are really challenging to get. There's also freelancer visas. There are different options for Spain. So if you're interested in Spain, I recommend checking out the website Spain Guru. They have a lot of information on different visas. That's a good place to start. All right, let's see. Some more questions. I have a teaching certificate, but I don't have a TEFL or a TESOL. Am I able to teach abroad? Yes. So if you just have a teaching certificate, then you would probably be looking for jobs in international schools and you would be teaching the subject that your teaching certificate is in. However, if you want to teach ESL or EFL, then I recommend getting a TEFL certificate and then looking for those kinds of jobs. So for certified teachers, you kind of have two different options. Teach the subject that you're certified in or get your TEFL, TESOL, get a CELTA if you want, and teach English as a second language. All right. Yes, Ninja Teacher in Vietnam is also a great school. Yes, I did an interview with Alex, who runs Ninja Teacher on my channel. So if you are curious to see what his course is like, he has a course there and he has a lot of really good relationships with the schools there. So you basically do your course with him and then he helps place you in a school there. And most of the jobs are for teaching kids. Yeah. All right. Well, I hope that this was helpful. If you enjoyed this live stream, just let me know by giving this a thumbs up. And if you have any more questions, just leave them down below. I've also linked down my survey. So if you need help teaching abroad or online, just fill out that survey and I will email you back with some helpful links. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.